I'm little. I'm big. Welcome to season 3 within a season. We got to make a new video, but until then. Surprise! Answers by guess, answers with guess. I'm guess. This is halftime adjustments, week 9.5. We're halfway, about to get ready for week 10. First two parts of the season, I like to break it up into 4 parts, are done. Halfway through the season, and this is where we're at. Got this little light behind me. I'll block it out every once in a while. Thanks for joining me. If you're here, please say hello. Remember to like, comment, share. If you're here on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell. I really don't like that light behind me, but 'tis what it is. Halloween's over. Thanksgiving's coming. Theme of the show, I think, is going to be running backs. They've gone through just about unscathed. This is running back season. It's been a bad year for wide receivers. Interesting week. Let's get into it. We got to recap. A lot happened. Props and play has gone down. A couple bad weeks in a row. Would have been much better this week if CJ Stroud would have hit a wide open John Mechie on either of 4 times, and he could have had 2 touchdowns. Bane of my existence this week, but 'tis what it is. Answers with guests, week 9.5. I imagine it's going to be a pretty quick show. There's a lot to talk about. I got a lot packed in here, but I sprung it on you. Had a busy day. Came home from work. Had to go to the polls. Had to get dinner ready, get the kids ready for bed, and didn't have a chance to make a post today because I was in meetings all day. So once more, 'tis what it is. Let's get into it. I knew it. If you could see that, good. If you can't, it's DJ Moore walking off the field in the middle of a play. You start on the top. He's coming towards the ball. Caleb Williams running towards him. Caleb Williams dodges a tackle. DJ Moore decides to just run out of bounds and give up on the play. Third picture down. Caleb Williams looks to try to throw to DJ Moore. Would have been a first down, but he's out of bounds, hanging out. And now the media is starting to pick up on this. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Bears in a little bit, but yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Khalil Herbert got dealt, but it's not going to help them too much this season. Hold on. I got somebody talking to me. Hold on. Let's get into it. Anyone with me here? These 2 guys. You could have had these guys pick 12 and 13 back to back. I played a majority, couple 14 team leagues. One of them I had a chance to pick my pick. I took first because I really wanted Bijan. And Bijan's been coming on doing what I thought he'd do. But man, if I would have taken like pick 14, I might have been able to get them both. I'm not sure where either one of them went. But if I would have went to that 12, 13, 14 range, sure would have helped because Saquon with his reverse hurdle and Derrick Henry's just been unstoppable. These 2 guys are carrying teams. If you are in first place or right near the top in any of your leagues, I'm willing to bet you have one, if not both, of these guys, which many people are lucky enough to have because they were both late first round, early second round picks. Baker knew it was over. I knew it was over. I ended up losing in the ABG league by 1.5. I needed the Bucks to get the ball so that Bucky Irving could do something. But That was also the league I started John Mechie in because of all my wide receiver injuries. And once again, I blame CJ Stroud. At that point, he just basically needed a 5 yard catch for a first down. I would have won, but tis what it is. You can't give Patrick Mahomes even 30 seconds. We saw it a few years ago. I believe that was the playoff game against Buffalo. It's Troy Aikman talked about it during the game. You know, they should have went for two. I'm typically in fantasy, as you all know. I really can't stand this light, as you all know, I play a little bit on the sexier side, and I like to take risks. Playing John Mechie, but I'm more on the side of kick the extra point, kick the field goal if you're down 3 points or 10 points. So I don't necessarily agree with it, but if you're going to give the ball back to him, I mean, you might as well have just gone for two because we all knew Baker knew. Yeah. And I called that one, called the Daniel Jones thing. The Giants could have covered. They were 4 points, and that was a loss because they lost by 5. But the interesting thing, because I said called that one about Daniel Jones throwing the 2 touchdown passes, and that was a prop I said to take. It was the highest quarterback 2 touchdown prop plus 190. Just had a feeling because you can pass all over Washington, but for whatever reason, the Giants opened up the game with, I think, 9, maybe 10 of the first 10 or 11 plays. They tried to run the ball. You cannot run the ball on Washington as well as you can pass it on them until now, because they got themselves a piece we'll talk about in a second in a trade that's going to help. So it's like the ship has sailed. I talked about it, with Juju in his 1 week, and the Juwan Jennings in his 1 week, and these guys, I'm saying, and then people have gone out and they spent a lot of fab, or they spent their number one priority, these guys, and then nothing to be heard of again. All these NFL teams is the same exact thing. You missed it. You had the opportunity to pass all over Washington, and you missed it because now Marshawn Lattimore is in town, and it is going to be a lot more difficult to pass on him. And that one down there, who was leading the league in sacks? The Giants. How many sacks did they get on Jaden Daniels? 0. Why? They have the best offensive line in football. I've been saying it for a long time this season. They are keeping Jaden Daniels clean. They kept him clean against the number 1 sack team in the league, and it's their offensive line. They are just incredible. And now they got a guy in the secondary that's going to help them, and Washington is going to be even more dangerous because now they're going to be able to at least be a little better at stopping the pass. Joe Flacco's like a lawn statue out there, just sitting under the house or next to the house. Gosh, that was hard to watch. Absolutely hard. What a game plan by Minnesota. Rush them, rush them, rush them every single time. Put them under pressure, put them under pressure. They could do absolutely nothing. And now the book is out. How do you get after the Colts and make their offense dead? Rush the quarterback because he just stands there. I would not be surprised if one more week goes by, if we see the same sort of thing, they're back to Anthony Richardson. Probably why they didn't even bother trading him. If they would have looked at least like they had a pulse against the Vikings on offense, maybe they would have entertained some of the offers that were coming in for Richardson, but it's not going to happen. Because as much as we love the Joe Flacco story, and as good as he was for Cleveland and a couple weeks even for the Colts, my gosh, he just stood there and just took it and just took it. He couldn't get the ball out. He's got no mobility, which is crazy because I could have swore last year he ran a couple times, maybe even this year as well. But he was just under pressure, and that's what teams are going to do against the Colts. So hopefully they fix it this week. There he is, the happiest man on the planet, Mike Evans, with Marshawn Lattimore getting out of the division. He no longer has to be bottled up by him twice a year. So I haven't checked. I think maybe they already did, as far as playing Washington goes. But it'll be the same thing. He can't beat Lattimore, never really has. He's happy now. So he'll be back after their bye, which I think is week 11. So he'd be back week 12. And unless they're playing Washington, I haven't looked. That smile's going to stay there. And I think Baker will be smiling just the same. Can it stick with Gesick? Finally, my boy came through. I believe I got to watch again. I haven't looked at the box score, but I believe 3 different tight ends scored for them. I said Eric Hall was going to score a touchdown. He got injured. He's now on IR. So Gesicki's the best they have, and they no longer are going to be using Eric Hall for the rest of this season. So I'm hoping it sticks. And it seems like whenever T. Higgins does not play, Gesicki has a good game. So we'll see what happens with T. Higgins this week. I was thinking maybe they were going to trade him, but they're stacking some wins together. And they got a Thursday night matchup against Baltimore. We'll talk about that one later, but we'll see. I'm hoping it can stick. If it can, he's a viable tight end, and I'm happy about that. If you've been watching the show for 8 seasons, he's been around since, I believe, 17, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 18. I've loved him ever since then, so I'm hoping it sticks. I like what he could do. A couple of these plays were fluky. You can't take that away from the actuality of it. They were broken, fluky type of plays. A couple of his big plays, the touchdowns, but they still count. And Burrow was looking for him, and he looks for his tight end. And I'm almost mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Type it in the comments. I think 3 different tight ends scored in this game. I think 4 of his touchdowns were to tight ends. And here we go again. That's Jordan Love. That's the roller coaster. And I've been talking about this for 2 seasons with Love, all the way back to the beginning of last year. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, if you're not aware. And he's just, I mean, the weather was the weather, but they both had to play in the weather. The difference is Goff didn't make any mistakes in the weather, which we thought he might. And it's all Love did. I mean, you're getting sacked. You throw the ball on your own 10-yard line right to the defender. A weak ass pass, pardon my French. Takes in for a pick 6. They were dead at that point. It's just a roller coaster with him. He says himself he's got to fix it. You can't be making those mistakes. I mean, you should have told yourself that probably 365 days ago. Problem is you went on a run 365 days ago, so you thought all was good, but you've got to fix that. And it could land him on the 5 guys to despise if he does not. So let's get into this. 5 guys to despise. These are guys that typically we would look to help us with fantasy and what we need, and they just are not coming through. And I went back through the past 5 guys to despise. There's about a 60%, at least 2 out of 5, if not 3 out of 5, fix it and become playable once again. So it's almost like a reverse jinx. So let's see if it works. And it would be nice if it worked with him. Because my God, Tiffany, if you're watching this, Tiffany, Dawn, whatever you want me to call you, I love it. She said this a couple weeks ago, and his receivers were not helping. Well, they're still kind of not helping. Harrison's dropping balls, but they're winning games, but he is not doing much for fantasy for us. Yeah, last week, talking 2 weeks ago, week 8 was not terrible. But this past week, I mean, it was just gross, and we need to see more out of you. And maybe they'll get into matchups where they're not playing against the Bears, who we'll talk about shortly. And they'll actually have to rely a little more on Kyler. They won't be giving up 60-yard touchdowns at the end of the first half because they give up on plays type of thing. It's just ridiculous. I'm going to despise CJ Stroud. I did say before in the preseason that I was feeling a sophomore slump coming. Granted, the injuries are there, but he was god awful against the Jets. Yeah, he was under pressure. Yeah, the offensive line wasn't protecting him, but there were plays where there was really no immediate pressure on him, and he just sailed it over guys' heads. I mean, twice to Mechie, because those are the two that are burned into my brain, unfortunately. But it was all night. It was all night long. The only person he could throw to was Tank Dell, and even him, there were some miscues. It was just gross, and I'm despising him, and maybe that'll turn it around. There they are. I'm despising the entire Bears team. 2 weeks in a row, I have given, and I'm sorry to you all if you're watching this. I really, truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. I said DJ Moore the past 2 weeks. And after the debacle last 2 weeks ago, I said I'm going back to the well, and I said DJ Moore because although I had a feeling something was up, his body language looked terrible, which is confirmed based on what we saw last week. I said maybe they got right, and we're just going to give it to him one more. It was a good matchup. And this whole team is just, I've never seen a team ever, correct me if you have, ever go on a bye on such a high. Them week 6 was like, oh my gosh, this team is coming for the chip. They go on a bye week 7. They come back week 8 and 9. They look absolutely terrible. I've never seen a team regress as much. Now, Swift had a good game 2 weeks ago. Okay, that's about it. Even he was bad last week. I've never seen a team go into a bye and come out exponentially worse than they were before the bye. Like they were sailing, soaring to the sky, to the stars after week 6. It was unbelievable. Caleb Williams looks like he's got it all together. They're going to go in the bye. They're going to get even better. Nope. They got worse. Week 8 and 9 Bears are just garbage. Garbage. Terrible. It's despicable. I despise them. NFL head coaches. Why? Except one. And I couldn't pick out the one, but we know the one. It's the Washington head coach. We don't despise him. But everybody else, and even if you haven't played Washington, I despise you. This team had such a terrible secondary, and you all tried to run against them over and over. Like, I get it. I get it. You got to keep them true. You got to keep them honest. You got to run the ball a little. Yeah, a little. So many opportunities. And it's gone. It's gone now. Lattimore is going to help that secondary. They're going to be so tough to beat. They're going to be so tough to beat. And head coaches shame on you. And the other thing, head coaches, I don't understand. I see it a lot. Yeah, you got to keep them true. You got to run the ball. But I'm watching these games, and I'm watching them run the ball in an obvious rolling passing situation. And I sound like somebody that like casually watches football, or somebody that just watches it every once in a while. Like, I don't want to be sexist, but like your wife or maybe your friend that doesn't really like sports, and they're like, why does he just run into the pile? I know we've already heard that. Why does he just run into that other guy? And then they were always like, oh, well, that's part of the game. You got to do that. And sooner or later they get through, yada, yada. But I'm watching it. I'm like, you are passing all over. Or if you just have your running back just go out to the side and throw him a screen pass. Nobody throws screen passes enough. I just don't get it. They just want to just run. I don't know. I'm going to digress, and I'm going to move on. I've seen some terrible play calling, and it's driving me nuts. Even if I have the running back and I want him to get the ball, it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's 2nd and 9. You just ran and got 1 yard. Now you're going to run and get 1 yard again. Now you're in 3rd and 8. Everybody knows you're throwing. How about you throw a screen pass? Come up with something a little more creative. I've seen too vanilla of offense, and I'm despising these head coaches, but mostly for not throwing on Washington because now it's too late. It's too late. You're going to be able to throw on them, but it's not going to be as easy. And Michael Thomas, he's number 5, and he doesn't matter. He's not fantasy relevant. He hasn't been since like 2020. But come on, you go back and you watch that play. We've all seen the play. I mean, it's not Derek Carr's fault. It's really not. This guy's not relevant either. And it just stinks. And I'm going to despise him. And we got Pat McAfee in there. We won't despise him. But Carr, whatever. The Saints altogether, Olave, his career might be done. It might be. What was he at? 6, 7, 8 concussions? At least 6. In the however few years he's played, 4 or 5 years. And that one was bad. I despise just the whole situation of trying to put that blame on Derek Carr. It's part of the game. I've seen some quarterbacks we all have lay their wide receivers out, put them in harm's way. That was not that play. And it just stinks because it's like if you're holding on to Olave in the Dynasty League, I hope he comes back. I hope he's okay, but that could be it. I don't know. It's different than a quarterback. Tua keeps coming back, though. So I don't know. But Jello brain is a real thing, and you might have it. Stroud got week 8. I gave him one on week 8, but last week he got week 9. He got a sophomore slump for that Thursday game. So far, so good because it's so bad. 5 guys for your eyes. There's a bunch of them there. We've gone over them before. We're going running back heavy. Khalil Herbert, newest member of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to fill into the Zach Moss role. Zach Moss probably going to be out for a good amount of time, at least 4 weeks, because he was put on IR today. And Herbert, he could be for this team with Chase Brown there. He could be a little bit like he's a little faster, a little slicier than like a Montgomery, but you picture it like that. Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift used to do that. Gibbs and Montgomery do, and we saw what Chase Brown can do when he's all by himself last week. There was a smash play that I was talking about Saturday night when we were live. I mean, you had to play Chase Brown if you had him. He delivered. Great matchup to do so, but now Herbert's going to come to town. Might take an extra week or so. Probably not going to give you too much this Thursday. I mean, he hasn't played in 2 weeks. It's Tuesday. He was just traded to them. They're playing in 2 days, so it's probably not going to do you any good this week. But for the Bengals, he's going to fit into that Zach Moss role and probably be better. So whatever you were getting or anybody was getting out of Zach Moss, I would expect that out of Khalil Herbert. It's the time of the year. It's running backs. S.8.E.17 is another one for the Broncos. He went on IR or at least was out for a good amount of time, 2, 3, 4 weeks. The rookie for the Broncos. Williams was okay again last week. But Sean Payton likes to do crazy things. He likes to mess around with his running backs. He likes his guy. Javonte Williams was not his guy. S.8.E.17 was a guy he drafted. So it's just a name to stash away. Put your eye on the guy. And I mean, I gave you Khalil Herbert's name on Saturday, and I said, you probably want to pick him up. He's probably going to get traded. He did get traded. S.8.E.17 is a name we all know. He surfaced early in the year, but he was not on this list. So I'm throwing him on the list because I'm going all running backs heading into week 10 because this is the time of year you just want to start stockpiling them. And he's a guy in Denver who hasn't been doing much, but all it's going to take is one hot streak, one game, one injury. And if you have a spot on your bench, he fits in number 4 for me. Number 3, Cam Akers. Oh, almost threw up in my mouth, but man, did he look good. Granted, he was going against the Colts, but I think it's clear the Vikings have soured just a little bit on Ty Chandler. And I think Cam Akers is going to be their number 2, and their number 1, Aaron Jones, is always hurt. So Aaron Jones goes down again. I think it's Cam Akers, not Ty Chandler, that takes over that role. They traded for him, and he was finally active and playing for him, and he looked good for him. I did not like him when it was the Texans a few weeks ago, which is why I'm throwing up in my mouth by putting him on here. But he looked good for the Vikings. Different system, um, better offensive line. Clearly, we saw how bad the offensive line for Houston was on Thursday, national TV. So, better system, better offensive line, better offense, and he just looked better. So, we'll see. He fits in at number 3 here. Number 2, typo. My fat finger's going so fast. That should be an N. Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd, Green Bay Packers. A lot of hype going into the season. He's more than likely coming back very soon. I would imagine they open his practice window very soon. Jacobs has been more than fine. They've been getting Brooks going. He's looked pretty good. He's sort of becoming their number 2. But Marshawn Lloyd was making a case to maybe even be the starter above Josh Jacobs somehow early on in the preseason. There was a lot of hype about him, and he got hurt. And that opened the door for Jacobs to do what he's done. But this Packers team, they love him, and he's got a lot of speed, a lot of juice, a lot of punch. And once he gets back, Green Bay's going to use 2. They've been using 2, and it's not going to be Brooks or Wilson. It's going to be Lloyd, and he is a name, a guy to have your eye on for sure. Number 1, a name everybody knows. Tajay Spears, but I had to put him at number 1 because more than likely your trade deadline is about to come up, and people, if they're still holding on to Tajay Spears, might be willing to trade him unless he's on the waiver wire. He's been hurt. He's only had a few splashes here and there throughout the season. Tony Pollard has looked really good, but the Titans came out and said that they want to start to lessen his workload. And who's about to get healthy and play again this week? Mr. Spears. And his bye week's over. And he's going to be coming back. And what was once a 70-30 most of the time probably will get closer to a 50-50 for Tennessee. So he is a trade target more than anything because he's a name we all know. Typically, you don't see that, a name we all know, in a guy that most people own on 5 Guys for Your Eyes. But I had to put him on here because I'm going running back heavy. And if I have the chance, I am looking to trade for Tajay Spears as soon as possible because Tennessee wants to lessen Pollard's workload. He's coming back healthy. It's going to be a 50-50 split once he is back. He's somebody that you could probably get cheap right now because he hasn't done anything in weeks because he's been out. He wasn't doing amazing before that. Couple good games, couple good plays here and there, but to end this season out, he's somebody that I want to go after. Question from the group. We only had one, so the show's going to be over relatively quick. I can go upstairs, put my kids to bed. I see there is one comment. I'll check and see what it is in a minute. The anonymous participant. You should, it'd be cool if you just had a Facebook account and that was your actual name. Who would you pick up with Dak out? I mean, I'm looking at the top of the list. I see Russell Wilson. That's who I'm going to choose. He's looked great. Their bye week just ended. And you go down the list, Daniel Jones, no matter what. I mean, he's got a great game this week. I mean, if you could pick up 2 and you play Jones against Carolina, I think that is a great pickup for this week. But if you could grab 2, I would grab Russell Wilson probably for rest of season. Because Trevor Lawrence, you've seen, Herbert, they're starting to throw the ball more and his bye's over. But Caleb Williams and May and Flacco, I talked about, Carr, I talked about. As you go down this list, it's just junk. So what I would actually do is I'd pick up 2 and I hope you're watching this. I would get Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson. I like Daniel Jones this week going against Washington. Probably going to be one of the last games that you're really going to be able to throw all over him until Lattimore gets in and gets acclimated. And he's looked really good. They're coming out of the bye. Pittsburgh is always, like most teams, except the Bears, better after the bye. Um, and so I really like him season long. But Daniel Jones this week going against Carolina is an absolute smash. So I would try and grab both. If you don't have two open spots, just grab Russell Wilson and just ride with it. Cook, let's ride, whatever he says. Yeah. Thursday night football, Cincy at Bolt. You know what? I was talking with Tiffany, one of our Patreon subscribers. We love her. She's been with us for years, almost since the beginning, if not 6 of them. We've been doing this 8 years. Tiffany, thank you so much for your Patreon support. Rob and I truly appreciate it. And, she's got a lot of injuries and bye weeks going on. Her team's killing it. She's an absolute all-star, fantasy all-star. She's incredible. And she got Deontay Johnson on the bench, and all she really needs is a wide receiver to fill in for Keon Coleman, who's probably going to be out this week, more than likely. And we were going sort of back and forth. And as I was getting ready for the show, I'm sort of thinking, you know what? I might take some Deontay Johnson props. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. I haven't locked anybody up. If I lock them up, I put their pictures there. If I'm still thinking about it, their pictures aren't there. But I'm thinking Deontay. I think this game's going to be a lot of back and forth. I said last week, don't play Bo Nix. Bo Nix has had 3 out of his last 4 games were against cupcake opponents. He's going into a hornet's nest, playing in Baltimore, coming off that loss to the Browns, and it went exactly as planned. How many 4th down stops did they have? And I think he got a rushing touchdown he got the passing touchdown from Cortland Sutton. But other than that trick play, I mean, Cortland Sutton doesn't throw him the ball or he doesn't catch it. They score 3 points that game, maximum. So they absolutely shut him down. But this game, since he's rolling, so this one's going to be back and forth, division rivals. And so I think Baltimore is going to have to and want to use Deontay Johnson a little more. These couple days of practice, yesterday, today, Wednesday, the walkthrough leading up into Thursday's game. I think they're going to get him a little more acclimated. I think if his number's around 2.5 receptions, I'm going to take it. And I think that's where it should be, 2.5, because I still feel like most people don't think he's going to catch it. Flowers had this big game. Him and Gesicki had 2 very fluky 2-touchdown games, but it all counts. It all counts, and we can't discredit that. But I think Baltimore is going to be using a more balanced, not so much as chuck the ball deep approach in this one, more methodical, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And Cincy, if they get Higgins back, we'll see. We'll see what Gesicki does, but I think that they're starting to roll. And this one's going to be a back and forth, good Thursday night game. And I like Deontay Johnson if his catches are around 2.5. And if he's got a yardage thing in the 30s, 30 to 35, I'd be looking at that too, because I think they're going to want to showcase him, and they probably got a couple things up their sleeve for him. They didn't trade for him to do nothing. And that's just that. So we got one comment here. Let's see what it is. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Sway says, try to claim Gesicki or stick with Ferguson with Dak being out. Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about. We got to hope it continues. That's the problem with Gesicki. Because we've seen him come, we've seen him go. If it was up to me, he'd stay forever. I love him that much. But, Cooper Rush, backup quarterback, who's their best friend? The tight end. And so I think I would probably just stick with Ferguson, because although Gesicki caught 2 touchdowns, monster catches, the other 2 tight ends, not named Eric Hall, which means they were using 4 tight ends. I believe caught touchdowns. I'm going to double check that. If I'm wrong, somebody call me out on it, but I'm almost positive two tight ends caught touchdowns before Gesicki caught his two. So either way, I'm going to go with Ferguson, especially with CD a little banged up. They did make a trade for Jonathan Mingo, but he's probably not going to do much. So Jalen Tolbert, Devontae Turpin, these kind of second team or used to play a lot with Cooper Rush. They're going to be involved, and yeah, I'd stick with Ferguson this week. Josue, you could put in a claim, but I'm not dropping Ferguson to get him, and I'd probably play Ferguson this week over him as well. I'd let the Thursday night come and go, and just forge forward with Dallas. Dallas might be getting Micah Parsons back this week or next, so that's something to keep an eye out on as well. I know Sample caught one. That's true, Tiffany. Gave you a lot of shout outs tonight. Hope you caught them. Yes. And somebody else did too. I could have swore. I got to look now. Pardon me. All right. Here I am. I dropped my phone. I got to look. And then I got to get upstairs so I can get my kids to bed. Let me see here. I could have swore. No, it's just Sample. You're right. Just Sample. Okay. Well, either way, he was the third tight end on the team, Sample. So, it is what it is. He likes his tight ends. I hope it continues. Gesicki with no Eric All is a great one. Pick him up, Josue, but I'd play Ferguson as of right now over him. I believe Dallas has a easier matchup this week because we see how Baltimore's playing. They got a couple guys on defense as well this week. Yeah, they're going against the Eagles. That's going to be a back and forth game as well. Eagles defense has been getting much better, as I forecasted about 2-3 weeks ago. And every week just getting better and better. And Dale's going to be needing to throw the ball. And typically against the tight end, the Eagles are not great. So I'd go with Ferguson. It's a backup quarterback's best friend is the tight end. I'm glad you love it. We love you. Thank you once again to everybody. I'm going to go upstairs, get my kids to bed. This is Halftime Adjustments, Answers with Guests. Rob and I will be back probably Saturday night again. Why? Because there's a 9:30 game this week. Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So we will see you then. We will let you know ahead of time. I'm sorry about the impromptu, quick me going live type of thing, but I threw the show together a few minutes before, and I just wanted to make sure I got on because I took off last week so I could watch my Dodgers. It was the worst game of the series, but they pulled it out in the end. So good luck this week. I think at this point, if you're 3-6, you're good. You can keep pushing forward. 2-7 is really rough at this point with 5 weeks to go. Because then you got to hope you get in with a 500 record. 3-6, you are alive. Do not give up. We'll see you Saturday night. Good luck Thursday. Stay tuned to the Facebook group. If you're a YouTube subscriber only and you're on Facebook, join the group. Stay tuned. I'll post any plays that I make. We got to get back on a hot streak. A couple cold weeks. Still up, but I want to be up more. I'm greedy. Sorry. Have a good night.